Hello, everyone, and welcome to the latest Lunch and Learn webinar by AMPIA. My name is Jenny Steele. I'm a producer here in Calgary, and I'm honored to be your host. Now, today we're going to the rodeo with two Alberta filmmakers who followed Indigenous cowboys and cowgirls on their bumpy road to the Indian National Rodeo Finals in Las Vegas. Their 13-episode documentary won a Rosie for Best Unscripted Series. Now, before we begin, we'd like to acknowledge the traditional territories and oral practices of the Blackfoot Nations, which include the Siksika, the Piikani, and the Kainai. We also acknowledge the Tsuut'ina and Stoney Nakoda First Nations, the Métis Nation Region 3, and all people who make their homes on the Treaty 7 region of Southern Alberta. We would like to thank Matt Waterworth of No Cap Content for his technical assistance today, along with Alberta Film, the Edmonton Arts Council, and Telefilm for financially assisting this webinar and offering support for professional development in our province. We'd also like to invite you to participate by adding any comments or questions you have in the chat column to the right of your screen, and I'll do my best to get to all of those questions within the hour. Now, with that said, we'd like to welcome our two guests from Yarrow Productions. We've got Neil Grahn, who is an Edmonton-based writer and director who is Métis, and Dominique Keller, who is a writer and director in Calgary. Congratulations to you both for your Rosie win, and thanks so much for joining us. How are you guys doing today?
Good.
Great. Thanks for having us.
Oh, we're so glad to have you. Now, let's kick things off with you, Neil. First of all, tell us, what is Rodeo Nation all about?
Rodeo Nation is basically a season with a number of Indigenous riders all trying to make it to the INFR, the Indian National Finals Rodeo in Las Vegas. And we follow along with bull riders, bullfighters, ropers, bronc riders. So we really had a gamut of participants that we tracked with.
Amazing. And it was just so fun to watch, because I think a lot of people, I've been to the rodeo at the Calgary Stampede, but you don't have any idea on how intense it is behind the scenes with the training, the preparation, and all the grunt that goes into becoming a rodeo star.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I know when we would get close to the bulls, before they were going to burst out of the gates, just feeling that power and just that coiled muscle was, I don't feel we really managed to convey that, because you just can't quite get that sensation, but it's quite awesome.
It is, and they're such beautiful animals. There's that one scene in the doc that you see the horse. There's a horse that almost bucks out of the cage, and I was mind blown. But Dominique, I'll go to you next. So how did you come up with this idea, and why do you think it's an important story to share?
Actually, back in a long time ago, I was working on a show called Underexposed, which was another show for APTN. And we covered Indigenous rodeo as part of that show. And we were just blown away when we went to cover it by the whole community and how it's a real sense of family and how many people are out. And that always made an impression on me and on my producers at the time. And so back in 2018 or 2019, like many Alberta producers, I went to the Banff TV Festival and set up my meetings. And really, it was just a conversation with the APTN executive at the time about rodeo and about Indigenous rodeo. And very fortunately, Tanya at the time, the broadcast lead from APTN, was very into rodeo, loved rodeo. And so when I pitched the show, she jumped right on board, and Neil Grahn came on board, and we developed the concept together. And that's how the show came to be.
Amazing. Was it one of the speed pitch meetings that they do in Banff?
No, I've never sold anything off a speed pitch meeting ever.
Those are so intense.
I know, like I've gotten like callbacks from those, but they're really challenging, that 8 minutes, to make an impression. And I think the executives get really overwhelmed. But fortunately, I had managed to have a private meeting set up with the APTN executive. And that's really where in the past I've had success at MAMP, is those more one-on-one meetings that I've arranged through reaching out to them, knowing that they're going to the festival.
Perfect. That's great advice for anybody else who plans on attending the Banff Media Festival in the future. Now, why do you think that both of you were the best team to tell this story?
I think you're reaching when you say best, because, we would have loved to have had James Cameron helping us with the cinematography. I think we were a really good team because Dom and I had worked together before. We knew that we could collaborate. And my background, I was around a lot of rodeo. My cousin Melvin from Uzona District ran pony chuck wagons. Some of the most terrifying moments of my childhood are riding in that wagon with him on his practice runs. So for myself, it comes a large part from where I'm from. And I felt that I could just fit in and really tell these stories.
Mm-hmm. Dominique?
Yeah, Neil and I definitely share a love of story, and I think that's where we always come at these projects first. So when you watch Rodeo Nation, you see a strong dedication to the story of each participant that we're following. Neil definitely comes from more of a rodeo background. I was a little bit out of my depth in rodeo, but I come from action sports, shooting action sports for many, many years. So I love a great sports documentary. So that's really was really exciting to capture that action, and rodeo really in Alberta delivers some excellent action.
Absolutely. Now, Neil, you mentioned that you and Dominique worked together. Can you tell us how you two met and some of the projects that you two worked on previously?
I think we first met on Fixing Dinner. That was a series shot in Calgary with Joe Media. And and that was, I really think that was the first place where we worked together. And I always got along well with Dom. I remember even going running with her a couple times and trying to keep up and thinking, oh, wow, Dom's in good shape. So we've just known each other, and it just seemed natural when it came up.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I'm assuming too, sometimes having that friendship behind the scenes just helps with the collaboration process and the filmmaking. All right, now we have a few clips to share with the audience today, starting with the opening of Rodeo Nation.
Dream long hard road to the INFR. Give it all I got, there's a gold buckle on my mind. No one said it was gonna be easy, no one knows why. Cowboys lay it all on the line.
Well, friends, welcome to the 45th Annual Indian National Finals Rodeo. Are you ready to have a good time tonight? Come on, let me hear from
ya. Are we back?
That opener is just stunning, and now we're back. It's just it's visually, I just can't wait to hear more about the opening. Dominique, first of all, can you describe the style of the documentary and why you felt it was the best way to tell the story?
Neil and I are both big fans of just allowing stories to unfold and really allowing our characters to lead the storytelling process. So coming more as a facilitator to their story, and certainly shooting rodeo and shooting this style of rodeo, you don't have any choice, because really everything's changing really quickly with our participants. Sometimes someone would get injured and we'd think that they're going to the rodeo. We'd have the whole crew ready to go, and we show up and they aren't there. So we find someone else to film for that rodeo. So that made this project really a true documentary style, in that we did not have a lot of control over the story. We were simply following what was unfolding as these participants went forward, chasing those INFR dreams. So that's really the style of this documentary, and that's the kind of documentary that I certainly love to make, where really we're more helping to capture a story that's unfolding, rather than more of a, like a reality TV style where there's a lot heavier hand in the storytelling process.
And you get that feel when you watch the doc, you feel like you're along for the ride and literally just kind of almost following them in the day of the life of, their life. And so it's a very authentic, natural feeling that you captured.
There was discovery all along the line. At the start of that, the music underneath him driving his truck to Vegas was by a performer named Armin Duck Chief, who we met because he was buying a horse from one of our participants, PJ Fox, and we went, "What? Armin Duck Chief? We heard of you." So then we ended up being able to license his music, and he was in the show, and it was just so natural. And it was just things like that that just came along, and lucky, happy accidents for us seem to occur regularly.
And that was the song used in the opening, correct?
It was when he was first driving to Vegas.
Okay.
In the pickup truck.
In the truck,
And
okay.
then,
And then how did you discover the song used in the opening?
that was from some of our Blackfoot friends who recommended that group. And so that was from one of our bull riders who said, "Hey, you should meet these guys." And then that's how we ended up with the drum and vocal group.
Amazing. All very serendipitous, right? It just all came together.
Yeah, and I'm glad you used that word.
Serendipitous?
Yeah, great word.
Originally we were going to film that open inside in an arena, and I had a real idea, we'll control the light, and Patrick McLaughlin filmed that, and he did a beautiful job of that piece there. And essentially COVID shut that idea down. So we couldn't shoot indoors at the time, and so I was like, okay, well, let's just shoot it outside in this arena here. And then we got outside, and there was this beautiful light, and Patrick's like, "Yeah, why did you want to shoot inside in the first place, Dominique?"
Well, and I feel like the opener being outside suits the style of the documentary more, don't you think?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's a perfect example of you want to exert your control in documentary, but ultimately, if you're paying attention and really looking, there's often a much better solution right in front of you.
Well, you nailed it. Okay, now let's talk about shopping the idea around for a documentary like this. Now, I guess you did talk about this originally, but how did you pitch the series, and what kind of interest did you receive?
I'll let Dom take that because I came on a bit later.
Yeah, it really was. I want to just say to those people out there that are pitching, because I've gone to Banff many times, and I think this series is really a part connected to the Banff TV Festival and how we all go, and we have our ideas, and I've certainly gone many times, and it's a really challenging process, as many of you know out there, to go sell your ideas at Banff. And I was pretty much out of money at the time too. I camped in the campsite because I couldn't even afford a hotel. and and I just had like a whole bunch of one sheets that I had written and ideas and whatnot, and ultimately none of those ideas really sold. But I ended up getting this meeting with Tanya. I sat down with her, and I actually think I had like a few ideas for her, but again, it's this kind of, I thought that I was looking at her eyes, and as
Mhm.
she started to talk about rodeo, her eyes lit up. And so I continued to develop that line of conversation. Instead of forcing what I already had on my agenda, I was really listening to what was what was resonating with her. And I think that's ultimately where the beginning of this show came to be, having a conversation about Indigenous rodeo. And then we were really fortunate, to bring an Indigenous producer on like Neil Grahn, who's such a talented and established Canadian director. So I reached out to him. I was really hopeful that he would come on board to help and to be a lead on the project with myself and our old producer Kevin Pennock. And he came on board, and then collectively we just had that little seed of an idea. We just had that seed of an interest, and then we had to take that interest and put it together into a pitch. So Neil and I talked, and really that's when Rodeo Nation was born. He came up with the idea for the name, and we came up with the plan to follow competitors and to have ultimately the season finale be in Las Vegas, and to really blow it out at the end. And we were just really hopeful that some of the people we started following would make it to Las Vegas. But we put the whole pitch together, which is like the Bible.
Yep.
Neil visualized all the different episodes and wrote them out. So created, and this is when you're making, I'm talking to the audience here, I'm assuming it's an industry audience and would be interested. But
Yeah.
when we're putting that pitch package together, we've met some people, we've gone to some rodeos, we've reached out to some potential doc participants, and we somewhat know them, but then we have to go and imagine what their life's going to be like, what their season of rodeo is going to be like, what episode 1, 2, 3, 4, all the way to 13 is going to look like. And Neil took all of those and wrote a big story arc. And then I helped them, and I put together all of the photos and everything that we collected together when we branded it, and that's a big package is ultimately what we submitted to APTN along with a sizzle reel. So we shot a 5-minute pitch reel that we interviewed our participants and put it together to give APTN a really good idea of exactly what this show would look like.
Mhm.
And the other day I looked at our pitch package, and it's pretty close to what we shot.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd love to know, like, when you put together your package, were there any huge, what's the word? Like, were there any huge, any instances that happened that completely took you off of where you thought your vision was going to go, and that you had to kind of pivot any of your planning, or any stories like that you can talk about?
Absolutely. I was really happy that the show became titled Rodeo Nation,
Mhm.
because when you are shooting with cowboys, I think that they are less reliable than musicians. And we would scramble. I remember I was going to a shoot. We're supposed to be at this rodeo with this one bronc rider. 20 minutes before we're arriving with our whole crew, I get a call from him going, "Oh yeah, man, I guess I just can't make it." So the whole crew's booked for the day. I said, "Well, let's go. We'll see what we can get for shots. Maybe we'll, work on getting some great shots." And that's where we then bump into a character, Dallas Youngpine, and his dad, Paul Youngpine,
Mhm.
were at that rodeo and became really important characters in the series. So being Rodeo Nation, it allowed us in a way to just open up our umbrella.
Yeah.
And we had some people that were really strong through the first 5 episodes that then tailed off, and other people we met partway through that were strong through the middle, and then other people like Cameron Bruised-Head, who you saw at the start of putting the bag in the back of his pickup truck. I think we met Cameron around episode 8, and then
Wow.
and then he drove us right through to the end of the series. And we knew of Cameron. We were trying to get a hold of him, but just radio silence. And then we're at a rodeo, and it's kind of, oh, hi, Cameron. He's like, oh, hey, guys. Like, yeah, I know you've been trying to get in touch with me. And from that point on, it was great. So you just had to be chill, go with their flow, and then just when it was good, go with it. And when it wasn't, you just knew you weren't going to get it.
Talk about perfect timing to meet Cameron, hey?
Oh, yeah.
You're like, thank you. Thank you.
Oh,
my-
yeah.
Yes. Now, Dominique, can I go back to your pitching? So I've heard, through these webinars that some people say the best advice when you're pitching is instead of just focusing corely on the idea, it's to form a relationship with the person that you're pitching to. And you mentioned that, you saw Tanya's eyes light up when you started talking about rodeo. Would you say that that's a good piece of advice to establish more of a relationship, or still focus more on your idea?
Well, that's why these, if you've got these 8-minute or 15-minute pitches, you aren't going to really develop that much of a relationship. What I'm going for when I have those short pitches is to get a follow-up number, and really then I'm just throwing my ideas out. And if I can get a follow-up number, I have gotten some bites off of those 8-minute pitches. I don't want to totally disparage them, but I'm going to say that they are a really challenging way to sell. And they're stressful for the person listening, and they're stressful for you as a producer. So I'm always, when I'm doing those shorter pitches, just trying to get their card, and I'm not putting a bunch of information in front of them, like material or anything. I'm going to email that to them afterwards. I'd say those ones are all about the follow-up. So it's like, hello, here's idea 1. I'm not too attached to it. Do you like it or not? And if I give them permission to just be super blunt, like, no, move on to the next one. Okay, move on to the next one. So I will set that up as a contract at the beginning of the short pitch. I'm going to pitch you a bunch of ideas. Just stop me for the ones you don't like, so we don't waste our time. And they're like, awesome. So I'll go, boom. are you interested in, are you interested in rodeo? Are you interested in bison at Banff National Park? Are you interested? And I'll just line those. And often they'll say, okay, tell me about that one. Then I'll develop that one. I'll just verbally develop it. I won't pull out the pieces of paper and all of that or put a screen in front of them. It's just too much information for an executive in 8 minutes. Then the one that they're interested in, I'm like, okay, great. I'm going to send you that pitch. Can I get your email address? I mean, that's really what I want to get out of that meeting. Then I get the email address. I take it back immediately. I send them the pitch, and I'm trying to get a follow-up meeting, because the next meeting's where potentially I'm going to make a sale. I'm never going to make a sale in that first meeting. So trying to get, it's like, like in murder cases, you never want to go to the secondary location. They always say that, don't go to the secondary location if someone's trying to abduct you or whatever. I think it's trying to sell in our business. You're trying to get that second meeting, and then you're trying to get a third meeting. And that's where you start to try to close some deal with these executives. You're not going to close on your first meeting at PAP.
Right. Okay. So contact info, that's the main thing to get.
I think so. And that's what's been my success for sure. I mean, I'm not an amazing pitcher by any stretch of the imagination. I just throw out my idea. But what I am great about is following up, getting that information, and just being relentless. And literally I'll email, hi, it's Dominique, just following up.
Persistence is key. That's what they say.
In our business, it is. And then you have to know when to walk away too, right? Like if they aren't going to buy your idea in that first or second, it tends to just kind of trickle out into nothingness. And then you've got to either move on to new ideas or find new broadcasters.
It's hard knowing when to walk away, though. That's a really hard thing to wrap your head around,
I mean, your idea, if you've got it out there, it's going to make or break itself after a certain point. You want to put a lot of energy into it, get it out there, get people's eyeballs on it. And then after that, your idea has to fend for itself. It has to have that has to have what they're looking for. And you've done your job by getting it in front of them and following up. And then after that, it's really up to the idea to live or die.
Absolutely. Great advice. Thank you, Dominique. Now, speaking of APTN, Neil, now you've had a very long, successful working relationship with them. How would you describe working with the network, and how much editorial freedom did you and your team enjoy while creating Rodeo Nation?
I think that APTN is the most delightful broadcaster to work with I've ever been with in my entire career.
Wow.
You know, other broadcasters you'll send an edit to, and you would think they were paid by the note. You know, you're going, it's a 22-minute show. How many notes can you do on 22 minutes? Whereas APTN will often be very sparse on their notes. They're clear, but they really let you do the show that you want to do. Not the show that they're kind of thinking in their own heads that they want, but they let you do the show. And so I really, really love doing shows for APTN.
Fabulous. Have you done, and what other shows have you done for APTN?
I've created a few series for them. I did Fish Out of Water with Don Kelly, and another one was a reboot of that, Crazy Like a Lynx, with Don Kelly and Dakota Ray Hebert, who they're both hilarious. And Dakota, her career path right now, I'm just trying to hook my my stuff to her, because she's just like this. She just starred in a movie this year called Run Woman Run, and I've been working on a few things with her. And I did a show called Playing with Fire for them as well, on firefighters, wild firefighters. So I've done a few series that I've kind of show run for them.
Amazing. It's always nice to have such a long-standing relationship.
It's too long for me, really, because it means I'm getting old. So
nah, we're getting finer, like a nice, we're getting, what's the word? Like a fine wine, we get better with age, right?
I like that, Jenny.
Yes, that's how we're going to look at it. Now, again, this is a story about athletes in Southern Alberta and the ups and downs they face on the rodeo circuit in an effort to make it to the finals. But there's much more to that. There's much more to the documentary than just that. Viewers get an opportunity to learn about the Blackfoot culture and the value in becoming a warrior. Neil, can you tell us how that unfolds throughout the series and why it's important for people to hear about Blackfoot culture?
Well, the Blackfoot language is one of the languages in our world that's threatened right now. And I honestly feel that doing a Blackfoot version and the Blackfoot parts of our series might be, in the long run, the best thing we've done here. For me, it's so important to have people who are the knowledge keepers, the language keepers on camera and sharing their language, because we're creating a document that could be valuable 100 years from now. And to meet some of these people like Rose Fox, Paul Young Pine, Rod Scout, just so many wise and learned people that were part of our show. And for them to actually be in it and speaking Blackfoot in the English version as well was important to us, because so many of our riders are Blackfoot, and the language carries so much of the culture that we felt having a Blackfoot scene in each episode was going to make a difference.
I strongly agree with that. And then there's one part too where I believe, again, Neil, so the documentary is also available, I believe, entirely in Blackfoot with English subtitles, and then, like you said, the English version that has some Blackfoot in it. But what was the thinking behind that creative and bold decision, and how have the two versions been received?
Well, the one thing that was important to us was to make sure that in each English episode there was a Blackfoot scene. So you can't watch an episode of Rodeo Nation without having English subtitles if you're an English speaker, because there will be a Blackfoot scene. I think it's been received quite well. And when I've heard from people, from family and friends and stuff, and I ask about the show, they actually don't bring it up a lot. It seems like it's just accepted as part of the show. And I think it might have been helped by the big streamers people are more comfortable watching foreign series that have kind of come on board, I think it's been received well.
Fantastic. I'm going to just read some of these comments here that are coming in. Bonnie says, great strategies for broadcasters, Dominique. So thanks so much for sharing those. And then Kelly just wrote, really great to hear your perspectives on this show, Neil and Dominique. So many series are dramatic or lifestyle focused and not as often true documentary style. Congrats on the success of the show and your style of storytelling. Thanks for that lovely comment, Kelly. And hi, Jill. Okay, moving on to our next question here. Now, PJ Fox is a fascinating character who we get to know in Rodeo Nation. Dominique, can you tell us about this cowgirl story and why it was obvious to have her be part of the doc?
Yeah, PJ is a firecracker for sure. She really pops. I mean, when Neil and I were first going to rodeos, scouting, looking to make relationships with participants and to have people do our demo reel with us or help us with our demo reel, PJ jumped out right away because boom, she has all this makeup on. She's dressed like in bright colors, and also she was winning. She's an amazing cowgirl. She's an amazing roper. So PJ definitely rides by the beat of her own drum and is very confident and shows that in her choice of wardrobe. She expresses herself through fashion and through her makeup, and as well as the show runs along, you get to know her and see her strength, and she comes across as a very compelling character because there is a relatability in that she also has a vulnerable side where she doubts herself and she has to really struggle to get her confidence up to go out and rope, especially after she has a series of losses. So PJ was just a gold mine of a character for us to encounter on the rodeo circuit because she has all of those things that you look for in a great character.
Yeah, her presence when she comes on screen was just wow. That was my initial reaction. Now we have a clip now from episode 1 explaining how this amazing PJ got her Blackfoot name.
In my life, I've had 3 Blackfoot names. When I was a baby, 1 year old, I had the name Dirty Face, which was Scoopsupsy. And then when I was in my teenage years, I went to Girl, which is a Geekuan. And then when I got into my 20s and I felt older, I wanted a more meaningful name, and I got my grandmother's name, which is Itsipsinimaki. And it is Capture the Horse.
Kidakuchitsunik kitsinskasi Itsipsinimaki Naarsa Saksakaks Nitruketsitinakssipin Ki Matumassamu Kitsitan Gekatsuitskasipsin Ki Tidapessapspinaninskasim Kinyenitutsip Kitsitruku Itsipsinimaki Naarsa idutsime Naarsa tinskak idutsime Udapskapuxsi Idakutauhkaatsi Itsitsinorsimakutauhkaatsi Niskutakkaamispukumi Kitsuitsimsta Itsapupia Istanakaasimiiskaaksimnaappuja Itsuitsimsta Ki miistanakaasi itsinniisuyawani miutakkaami umanistaamarkaine usti itsinniisuyawani itskikiitaitsaatsi itskikiitawu kiniiksamurtuaarka samurtitsuawaarka itsituutuaamuntiskei aamnaapiikkuanarkiitaassi itsinui mi punukaamita itsuukkiaine Naaksai tikamu sa tsinis punokamita. Kito itkiapo kitopi. Samu tkapiwe. Ki anyanis tisi, kamanis tisi, mato tuiwe tsao ayistapske yawats. Naaksai tistapske nis punokamita. Kinistu te pukani. Naaksananits tohkanetskakinan. Naaksa itani kistu kidakaniku itips tsinimaki. Anye nuhtanistitskaku itips tsinimaki. Naaksa tohkanetskakin. Kenskeistu ustui ikamutta itikamutakpska kenyanitu tsimniska. Ni stitsitips staatsetruk itips tsinimaki kenyekianistinska.
That's one of my favorite scenes. It's such a beautiful moment between those two. Now, Dominique, why did you feel like that was such an important scene to include in the doc?
That scene was actually directed by Neil. So maybe I'll pass that to him because he was really the one that drove that scene.
All right, Neil, take it away.
Well, I think because there's so much shared in that scene. So we get her name, Itsipsinimaki, and captures the horse. And so we get a different vibe where, coming from a colonial sensibility, you could call that story horse thief. But it's not that. It's he needed the horse, he took the horse, and then he shared it when he got home. And for the grandmother to then give that name, which again is another cultural learning point where, wait, you have a name and now you can give your name to your granddaughter when she gets to a certain age, and that there's different names for different ages. I just thought there was so much inside that scene that it was really important to get it out there. And it's a beautiful story.
It really is. Even Bonnie's saying, wonderful to hear this moving story in Blackfoot. Powerful. That's the perfect word. It was so powerful. And that's how I felt watching it. It was just so amazing to take in. And now you both spent a lot of time at rodeos in small town Alberta and beyond, in small town Alberta and beyond, and you met a lot of people along the way. What was that experience like for you, and how did that help you decide on which characters to focus on? I'll let Dominique start with this one.
Okay.
Sure. I was like, I have to admit, rodeo was new to me, and there is a lot to learn. First of all, safety wise, about filming at a rodeo. These animals are coming out of everywhere, and when we're in our film and television directing mode, I tend to have my head down. I'm just thinking about the story. One time I was doing that. You can cross the chutes to get to the back of the chutes, and I was just not even thinking, and I went and followed this cowboy behind the chutes, but he had just slipped in, and all of a sudden I realized that I was in a chute and they had opened it up and the bulls were coming towards me. And everybody's like, get out, get out. Well, they've never seen a middle-aged woman launch herself at a fence as dramatically as I did.
Good thing you're in good shape, like Neil mentioned earlier.
I was like, adrenaline is a very powerful drug, and it saved my life because I just got over the fence at the moment that this huge round of bulls just came barreling past. And then this old cowboy turned to me and he's like, well, that'll learn you.
No kidding. Yeah. Oh my gosh.
So
Neil?
Sorry.
Oh, go on.
Yeah. So safety is definitely something that I learned a lot about. You got to keep your head up, and as well for our crew, Phil shot a lot of it, and he's standing up on the chutes to get those great shots. And a bull, or as you see the horses, they can just rear right up out of that chute, and you can be knocked backwards with your camera. So we had to be really aware. It was definitely an exercise in, first of all, learning the rules of the rodeo and learning how to be super aware about your surroundings. I mean, anytime we film and television, that's safety is always a concern for all of us. And certainly that was the case with Rodeo Nation.
Absolutely. Neil?
Well, and just finding out the way that rodeos function, you know, there's always a person in charge of the chutes. So that's the person you would go find, because different people run different rodeos different ways and have different standards. So you could go to one rodeo in Bassano and everything was good, but then in Fort McLeod, no way. So you learned, you find the person who's in charge of those chutes, you say hello, kind of, and then you can set your cameras once you talk to them, because they'll set those parameters. And being small community, after we'd been shooting for a few months, things got easier and opened up, because people would say, oh yeah, didn't I see you in Lethbridge? Go, yeah, you did. All right. And then it was easier. So, you know, it was nice that way, but you had to learn how the rodeo functioned. Just like Dom said, watch these shoots and see who's in charge of what.
Mm-hmm. And stay close to the people that are telling you where to go. And wow, that's
depending on the person, because a lot of those riders are crazy.
Oh, really? Tell us a story.
Yeah. They'll go to places where you do not want to be.
Oh my gosh. Okay, well, the next clip we want to share is what you were looking for in the different storylines.
Do me a favor, put your hands together as we welcome 4 local girls as tonight's trick riding act.
Mark is also here in Brooks, and he's getting ready to compete in bareback for the first time in 2 years.
I didn't even sleep last night. I was so like excited. I had to my body literally told me, hey, you have to sleep somewhat, like just relax. So I just put on some INFR and I just fell asleep watching it. I'm pretty nervous, excited. Just go try to stick to the basics and make the whistle, get off on the pickup. Try to just keep it straight, keep my mind clear, and keep positive about it. It's very humbling. I'm sure I'll be okay once I get behind the chutes and everybody's there. And I know what I'm getting on, and that's gonna be my job.
All right, bareback riding time. Let's attract your attention to chute number 2.
Probably have to go out there and show what I'm saying. I was in that zone, you know, I was just locked in.
We're gonna go with Mark Big Tobacco, 6-Second Nation.
Walking away.
Remote. Yeah, get a hold, buddy. Whoa! Ladies and gentlemen, if you're a fan of rodeo right now, is the time to come on loose. Woo! How about it? The sun's going down in a beautiful sunset. Lights are loud. The music is awesome. And the future is bright for Mark Big Tobacco.
In the back of my mind, there's this guy telling me, we're not done. I'm not done. I'm not done. I don't care what you're thinking. I don't care all those negative thoughts you're talking about. I'm not done. So today we were with that guy. We were with him, and, you know, I'm real proud of him.
If you're a fan of rodeo, you know how hard that was. Excellent work, boys.
just wanted to be the ultimate horseman when I'm, when it's my time to go. I want my kids and my nephews and my people to look up to me the same way I've looked up to Allison doing today. Coming here and just doing it, getting it over with, it really means a lot.
See Daddy, right? Huh?
Now you can see from that clip that rodeo is a dangerous sport, but it's even more dangerous to cover. So Dominique and Neil, can you explain how you approached covering the rodeo scenes? I know you touched on it a bit earlier, and the challenges associated with working with such big, dangerous animals. Neil, let's start with you.
Well, you can see in that clip when he's getting set on the horse, there's one shot from across the arena where you can see our cameraman who's right close to him. And the one thing we did learn was to work with the people at the shoot. So they would kind of tell you, you could move here, you could move there. And then also knowing, like our DP Phil really learned was, you can be there as long as that horse has a place to rear up and you're not in that path. And when we first started, we'd say, oh, we should get closer. And we learned, well, you can't do that because they're unpredictable. Mm-hmm. And so it was a lot of learning on our part of just where exactly to go, and on our camera, on our crew's part as well. So it was that combination of listening and learning.
Mm-hmm. Dominique, do you want to add to that?
Yeah, actually, that story with Mark Big Tobacco there's an interesting story behind him as a character. And he's an interesting character because I first filmed with him. I was filming a different person, Curly Twig, he was just there helping Curly. And we were initially filming, and the PA came up to me and he's like, you see that guy over there? And I was like, yeah. And he's like, he doesn't want to be on camera. And I was like, oh no.
No.
So he was like literally the guy helping. He was in every shot, and we were following Curly. And I was like, no. So anyways, he's trying to talk to me, the PA, and I'm like, oh yeah, I'm going to have to deal with this later. Just keep shooting. So we shot. And afterwards, I come over to Mark and I was like, hey, my name's Dominique. We're filming. I gave him the whole story, and I was like, it's a drag that you don't want to be on camera because you're in the shot. and this is an example of we just started talking, right? Mm-hmm. And then after I was talking to him and explained what it was, I explained why we were doing it, and we had a few moments together, he was like, all right. I guess you can film here. Whereas he signed the release. And so then I continued filming, and we filmed with him afterwards, and he was amazing. He was like, you're filming, somebody's just dropping like just amazing pieces of information. And I was like, this is a great character.
Yeah, he just needed that little nudge.
Yeah, he needed that little nudge. But interestingly, while he was sitting talking to Curly, he had said, I'm injured, but I want to get back out and do a ride, but I'm scared to do a ride. And then later on, I was filming at another event, and he happened to be there, and he came up to me and he was like, I said that on camera. I said that I was going to ride again. So now APTN lady, I have to ride again because I said it on camera. So I was like, okay, excellent. We want to follow you then, definitely. So that's an interesting example of how you think you're not impacting the story as a documentary filmmaker, but we're fooling ourselves. We are not flies on the wall. And there was a back and forth, and that's how that story came out that we just watched, was him getting back on the horse after a couple of years. He had a huge injury where he broken his collarbone and it was sticking out, and he was terrified to get back on the horse, and he did in that film.
Oh, amazing. I love that story. And Harold is actually saying, I love your insights. I love the show. Thanks so much for sharing this. I think people just love hearing all the behind the scenes stories. So thank you guys. Now, before we play our next clip, Kelly's asking, can you tell us a bit about your award-winning edit team?
Oh, wow. Well, that was Wayme and Paul and Sarah. And Yeah, they were amazing. What we did was Dom and I would kind of come up with a paper edit first, and we'd get that to Wamey and Paul, that would wrestle our scattered thoughts and our here's this clip and stuff, and we'd work on it a bit with Wamey or Paul, and then when we got it down to a manageable size, what was it, Dom? Was it about 26 minutes, 25 minutes in there? Then we would hand it over to Sarah, and Sarah would take it through to the kind of right to the finish line with the broadcaster. And then Glenn Sakich would then do the color correction and the final trims and tweaks and stuff. And they were all just excellent. They were all really skilled, and they help us so much in telling the story and figuring out what we're doing and where things go, that editors are just invaluable to the documentary process.
I completely agree, 100%. Okay, now the next clip we're going to show is an exciting one where one of your characters tries his hand at bullfighting. Dun, dun, dun.
We know.
Well,
Actually, bullfighters are really interesting characters, hey? Like it's Neil who loves bullfighters.
Oh, I love him.
You do? Yeah.
Chris Buffalo, he's an amazingly skilled person who I think he also teaches like at a kindergarten in Masquachis during the off season. So he's a super mix of just really, really crazy bold and really sweet as well. So he came to us because we met him when we were down in southern Alberta shooting with our bull riders who didn't have anywhere to ride during COVID. And they just had some bulls that they set up a corral. And Chris Buffalo drove down from Masquachis, Alberta, and that's where we met him early on in the series, and then met him again at the Vegas National Finals. So we missed him because he works mostly pro rodeos and not like the native rodeos. So we were happy to see him in Vegas.
No kidding. Okay, well, we've got the clip ready for us now, so let's see it.
You're ugly.
What is it?
You said that last time.
I know.
Well, and you're going. I think just an interesting example of us following these side characters who end up coming into the show. Like we originally were looking at bull riders and barrel racers, but then all of these other people that are connected to the rodeo who have really interesting stories helped us to fill out the series. So it's again that just being open to what shows up.
Yeah, absolutely. What comes your way, you focus on that. Okay, third time's the charm. Here we go.
Ladies and gentlemen, are you ready for some bull riding?
It's a tough job keeping cowboys safe, and these bullfighters are just beginning a grueling and dangerous week.
We're looking at 10 performances in 5 days.
We'd like to take this opportunity to recognize our bullfighters. We think they are some of the best in the world. The first one is from Masquachis, Alberta, Canada. The Blackfeet and Green Nation. Please welcome Mr. Chris Buffalo. Hello, Chris.
Good job, Chris Buffalo.
I've been fighting rodeos for 14 years now, and I've been fighting the Indian rodeos for most of them. Most of the guys are American. Being the only Canadian up here, it's kind of humbling to be down here for the finals.
How about a round of applause for those bullfighters, ladies and gentlemen, on the spot.
These bulls, they can wreck you out and they can spook you. They got some big horns, but they're just like any other bull. They're here to buck, and we're just gonna have fun with grabbing some horns, I guess.
There are only 2 bulls left in the opening performance when it happens.
He kind of picked me up and lifted me and got under my vest. I just remember hitting the fence and blacking out for a minute or two, and then coming back to the arena, and yeah, just a little shook, but it was a good save.
The bull gave you a little look back? Yeah, good shot. Yeah.
He got me right under the vest and like right kidneys, right in the kidney shot. It was, I'll get a little breather and get some ice, but it should be good.
Now, Neil, how did luck, or I probably should say not much luck for the poor guy in the scene, but how did luck play into that scene? How did luck play into getting a scene like that?
Well, it's, just you try and figure out where you can put your cameras. And in Vegas, it was harder for us because it was being covered by some, I forget the name of the US broadcaster, but they took some of the primo positions. So we had to kind of scramble and take some different camera positions. So we were lucky that he was coming right towards the camera when that bull was behind him and lifted him up. And you could see just really how frightening and terrifying and how much power there is there. So that was lucky. And for us, unlucky for Chris, because that was the first performance of the rodeo for him. And he had another 3.5 days and about 9 performances to do. So he was getting taped up and in the medical room all the time. And we covered that as part of the story as well, which, being documentary, you like to see people run into trouble and then succeed.
Yeah.
And then he did. He fought through it. And, it was unfortunate for Chris, but really fascinating to see how I guess he cracked or broke a couple ribs. So he had them taped up and did the rest of the week that way. And that was an amazing story.
Takes you right in there to tell you, like, it really amplifies how dangerous this sport really is.
Yeah.
All right. Now, Neil and Dominique, what advice do you have for emerging directors who are interested in making documentaries? Dominique, you can start.
Okay, sure. If you're just starting out, even if you've been in this for a while, as we all know, this is a very challenging career path to follow. And I think what I would say, I'm trying to say something meaningful, is that it's just try to have fun, try to soften yourself and have fun, but then be relentlessly persistent in moving towards your goals. So I think it's necessary to keep the levity and to keep smiling and to find those happy moments, find your peers, and find the fun when you're on set, or the fun just even when you're putting a pitch proposal together. Enjoy that process, and then just keep pursuing your ideas, keep putting that one foot in front of the other. Make those emails, make those phone calls, or get out, film some stuff that would be a little sizzle reel, cut it together. It doesn't have to be perfect, but all of those steps that are tangible steps towards getting your projects made are ultimately going to get you at the end. But along the way, take care of yourself and try to have some fun.
Love it. Neil?
I would say plan as much as you can, and then be willing to throw that plan out the window, because a lot of times you'll get there and what you think was going to happen isn't going to happen, or the people aren't there. So, but you still work and plan. And when you're on location, listen, and watch, and don't get caught up in just what the camera is shooting, but be watching and listening all around, because the camera is like caught down. The audio is stuck on the people that you've got the mics on. So your job is to kind of really survey, because there's a lot going on and you've got to 360 it. And then the last thing I would say is be respectful. You should want the people that you are following, and this is for documentaries like ours. This isn't for an investigative documentary where you're covering some scumbag. This is for people that when you're following with good people, be respectful. Make it so that they want you to come back.
Dominique and Neil, it was so fun chatting with you both today and getting all of your insight for Rodeo Nation. Just a reminder again, they both co-wrote and co-directed the series, and you can catch it on APTN. Again, a huge congrats on your Rosie win, and it was so deserved. I just thoroughly enjoyed this series, and I hope all of you watch it as well. Now, just a reminder to everyone that all 3 Lunch and Learn webinars will be available on the AMPIA website at www.ampia.org for the month of November. So feel free to watch them again, share them with your friends and colleagues, and if you have any ideas for future webinars, be sure to email them to us. On behalf of everyone at AMPIA, I'm Jenny Steele. Thank you so much for joining us, and goodbye for now. Thanks again, guys.
Thanks. Bye.